started to actually take care of myself and work on, my childhood traumas and, my dirt and shit. And now that I've done that, or that I've been doing that, now that I've been doing that, I realized that putting myself first was putting them first. Like putting myself first and working on my healing and my self-love and nurturing my child, I was able to properly love them.
Yeah, I can see that. That's beautiful.
Because I didn't properly love myself at all. In any way, shape, or form. In fact, I hate my damn self. And yeah, so, and feeling as if I was loved by anyone before, I had to learn what love really was. And in order to do that, I had to really, really like open up them wounds and take care of them so that I could really love myself.
It's interesting. I don't know what programming happens to make us think that if we're harder on ourselves, if we're meaner to ourselves, if I put myself down first, somehow it's going to make everything better, but it just perpetuates the cycle that you need to break. And I'm speaking from my experience with twisted mindset of self-sabotage and negative self-talk. You're like, I know how that started, but I think even society encourages us to be harder on ourselves. Like, you're not supposed to have cellulite, have a big butt. Like, what?
Are we doing figure 4?
Yeah.
Okay. And I think that I mean I think I do the same. No, I know I do the same thing. I really do. And I think it's because we perceive the world as such a hard place, and we eat up so much, but the outside world, we eat ourselves up internally, where others can't see. Then we'll either build up an endurance or calluses to the outside world when they do it. It's like, yeah, you can't beat me up anymore because I'm already beaten up. You can't break my leg because my leg's already broken. Type.
I think you said it right. Just take one leg, bend and more.
Okay.
So there's logic there, and it makes sense in the moment, but it's such a pattern to break.
Yeah. It's definitely a difficult process to get out of. It's like that vortex that once you get sucked in, it's really freaking hard to get out. And most of the times there's no hand to pull us out, or what we usually see as a helping hand pulling us out. But really, like if we really get in tune with our higher self, which is hard to do while we're in that, like then that's what really gets us out of that vortex, spiraling down into that pit.
You made a good point that it has to come from your higher self, but you're not vibrating at that higher self level once you might have that aha, you might have that epiphany, that awakening, that night that just scares the shit out of you to wake up, something like that, but
Right.
not quite vibrating at that same level to tune in that same way that you need to actually.
Yeah, it's really difficult. It's like if you're pay attention when you get that slight moment of clarity, because I remember I was even in my darkest of days, I would have those very, very, and while they were very faint and very brief, those moments of clarity where I could, tune into my intuition and like knowing now what it is, I say that it was back then, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so. I think I get it.
It's I guess it's evolution, but in a shorter time frame. I guess I don't want to call it the narcissist empath how can I refer, what can I refer to this as? Because it's not quite the narcissist empath journey, or well, it's similar to, we'll say.
What if it's about, there is this level of awareness, there is this level of connection. You know, one's using it for heart and the other is using it for ego gain.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I was listening to a talk, and he was talking about women use sex for love and men use love for sex. And I was like, I still don't know what I thought of that, except for when I think of the yin yang symbol and I think of body parts. I'm like, okay, maybe that fits, but I don't know what to think of that yet. I still haven't brought any words to it, but I wonder if it's still just some sort of cycle where it's like there is still some level of wanting to connect. There could be a genuine emotion, genuine love. I don't know if there's a deceptive undercurrent or it's where self-blame is coming in. I don't even know. Maybe we want to self-blame, or perhaps there's this level of like there's still this other level of leveling up to the self on both accounts, but it shows up in two different ways.
Yeah, like the two different forms of expression in a way.
Like,
I believe that could be the case. Like, so like men, they search for we search for certain things in men other than honesty and loyalty. Like, search for a man, like physically, to be strong and handsome or have a certain facial structure that we appreciate. Men, they search in women for childbearing hips, breasts that would, child could suckle from. Like certain things that our I guess ancestors would have more to be more accurate back in the day. And they just kind of evolved with the times.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, because we're not looking in the same way, but yet there's still the same primitive programming. Which is why I think, ritual versus addiction is so prevalent. We still, like, just because we have a fucking smartphone doesn't mean we're smart humans. We're still like, are animals in some sense. I don't know if you've seen this Netflix special about the documentary of octopus. I'm like totally obsessed with octopus. I've been painting them for years. But there is this one part where he's actually starting to go ahead and lift and lower your toes again. He's starting to connect to the octopus. Like she's come out of her shell. She's, touching him. They're communicating on this nonverbal plane, but seriously connected. And in order for him to dive, he has to wear weights on his belt to keep him down, so he can stay at her level. And one of the weights dropped. And then go ahead and rotate your ankle. The weight dropped. It was an accident, but it scared her away. And he thought he had lost her forever. And then the other side. So that kind of stays in the back of my mind when I think of coupling, of how we work. I don't know the word inadvertently, but I think we trigger each other and we don't mean to. But then when we're just throwing the kitchen sink, that's different. So I don't quite know where that story plays in, but it feels like it plays in somehow.
It's, I believe, excuse me, like, and I think that very, very accurately. It fits perfectly because, like, okay, for instance, my ex, he made me so scared of being giving my all again, because I would be cheated on. I knew it. I knew for a fact that I would be cheated on. So I left him. I was a bad woman. I was a bad person. Guys to fall in love with me intentionally or unintentionally, and when they did, I called them weak for doing so. And I would make them feel like this big. I was a complete asshole. They did not deserve it, but I was hurt. I ran away from, not only ran away from love, but ran away from the potential of it ever happening. I had to like force it away. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? All because this fucker dropped the ball. And that happens so much in every relationship. If our partner treats us in such a way, we will go to great lengths to make sure that the next person can't do that.
And I think two things I think happen is you kept repeating, because what? You probably unknowingly find the same person until you learn the lesson.
Yep.
Repeating it two ways, either repeating it by putting up these roadblocks, so you're putting up your own Seven of Cups energy, and continue that devil's card, keep finding that same person. And so you think your tactics are fucking working, but you have a different human in front of you. You're just looking at the Seven of Cups lens. You're looking through the lens of the past and not seeing, this is a fresh start if I want it.
Yeah. Could have been. Coulda, shoulda, woulda.
Right.
I think you're absolutely. And I don't think that's fair to the ones that want to love us. They don't want to hurt us. And I think you're right. Just as, when we're looking for love, we will, okay, so that term, seeing things with rose-colored glasses. Like you're looking at your partner as if they do no wrong because, we're looking at them as if they're the epitome of love and perfection. But on the other hand, to the same extremes, we are, like when we are coming from a relationship that was so traumatic and so painful to, as I referred to it, was my spiritual death. I looked through the glasses. My glasses were broken and covered in slime and duck. So that's how I seen any potential partner, whether it be male or female, that came my way. None had a chance because the glasses that I was wearing at the time were still covered in muck from my previous partner.
Yeah, and the one thing my dad was really big about is like between a relationship, he had this like rule, 6 months. And I think there's definitely something to that, taking that, like going into hermit mode to reset in between. Because I think you learn from everybody you're with, ideally. Like they teach you something, good and bad. If there wasn't anything good there, you would have started, whether they put on the facade for you and you fall for the facade or not, But it's like then you can reevaluate with that last relationship. Okay, so what do I want? What do I need now? Because we're always growing and changing.
Absolutely. Oh, and I do want to say how it was. Oh, did we switch?
Rotate the other direction, yeah.
I'm sorry, I wasn't. So it's fitting that you said the devil card because the last person was a Scorpio.
Wow. Esther Perel talked about that. She said you're going to have several relationships in a lifetime. It's just a matter of whether you're going to have several relationships with one person or several. She's got some interesting concepts on monogamy and strength. I would recommend her book, Mating in Captivity, for sure. But in one of her talks, she does talk about that. It's like ideally you find this partner that as you evolve together, continue to evolve together over the years. But unfortunately, that doesn't always happen. You usually evolve and go, oh, on to the next, on to the next.
Yeah, I think with every partner that we have, just like with every phase of our life, we have, so where there's these new lessons that come, and we have to learn them. We have a choice to learn them, and not only learn them, but to put those lessons to use. When like when we move on from one relationship, we can't carry the traumas. We can, just like when we're healing from our childhood wounds, we can't go back into that situation where we were the victim. We visit there so that we can pick the things that we need, just like reach back, grab something, and go, go on. So like with those relationships, just take just the lesson from it that you need. You don't keep the pain of betrayal and heartache and abandonment and neglect and abuse. And if we can only take, okay, well, I deserve better than this. I won't allow this to happen anymore. I know what it feels like, so I won't do it to another.
Oh, I like that.
So, just move on to, and that's how we grow, is new lessons. And I think that, when we stop our physical growing pains, we have our spiritual growing pains. So we literally never stop growing. And that's why we can never stop healing, because we're constantly growing and we constantly have to feel these growing pains. So it's just like it's like a never-ending story.
Mm-hmm. And I like that analogy because it happens on two levels. I like how that story's on two levels. And when you're on the spiritual path, I think we're more aware that there are these other levels of things happening if you choose to do it and acknowledge it.
Yeah, like the physical, physical pains, they're more understandable, and we get more from or more help from others. When we have physical wounds, it's like, oh, your arm is broken, let me get that door for you. Or, oh, your leg's broken, let me carry or help, you can use the escalator. But when we have that internal pain, like, oh, you're isolating yourself, let me call and check up on you. It's like, nah, she's being a bitch, she don't want to talk to nobody, she's ignoring everybody's phone calls. You know what I mean? We don't get that same, we're not awarded that same grace. Because, and I think it is that we hide our emotional pains and our emotional scars so much that it makes us numb to the fact that others really do feel it too.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. When I was taking my mental health first aid teacher certification course, that was one of the points they made about mental illness, that like if somebody has cancer, there's a death in the family, if you knock on the door, you bake a casserole, you see how they're doing. If someone has depression, anxiety, there's been suicide, it's like no one knows what to do with it. But those are real life circumstances that shouldn't be wrapped in pain, that people still need support. And I think you made a very, very good point.
Yeah, and they're ever present right now because of this COVID shit and everybody being stuck in the house now, willingly isolated. So those extroverts that are going out and socializing, they're not cool like us. They're not okay snugged up with a book. They need to get out, because that's what's in their, that's what their DNA tells them they got to do. That's who they are. So they don't know how to handle it.
Yeah, and I think we don't have, because there's other additional restrictions, we don't have our same distractions. So then it's like, oh, what is life now? I can't like waste time doing X, Y, and Z, aside from needing that social support as an introvert extrovert. And like, for us, it's kind of blessing me, like, oh, a little less social pressure has been beautiful. I love people, and I also like to be by myself a lot.
Exactly. There's nowhere to run now. You got to be with yourself. So these people that they run and run and run, where are you gonna run to? The damn bathroom? Mirror. What do you have? A fucking fucking mirror. You look up in the mirror. You can't go nowhere. You're stuck with your goddamn self. And not too many people are okay with that because they secretly hate themselves. And it sucks because they couldn't, but you know, life factors may tell them that they should or made them feel they should.
That's an interesting point because I do think that layer of that shame and self-loathing, I do think that's an undercurrent with a lot of people, and I don't think I've ever heard someone say it out loud. I think that actually needs, like Brene Brown talks about shame, but if we look at what's under shame, it's actually self-loathing and hating yourself, and I don't think we speak to that, and that probably is something that needs to be addressed a little bit more because that's like that egg breaking open, that vulnerability piece of, if you know my wounds, will you throw salt on them, you know, or will you throw rocks at me? Like what's going to happen if you know those wounded places? Because not everybody holds that with reverence. People actually use that against them. And it's another place where, like, if someone shows their vulnerability, some people aren't ready to receive that. They're like, whoa, let me run, because they're not ready. Like, someone can't meet you if they're not ready with themselves to meet themselves there. And some people aren't ready for that. Yeah. Like, that strength is really too intimidating for some people when that strength is actually vulnerability and authenticity and get the sense of like this flower opening. It's not, yeah.
Yes. It's like the flower and they're still the same. They're the same creature. They may not be the same size or the same, like, they're the same thing. They are a plant. They are nature. So us being the fragile, gentle flower, the big oak tree, it's the same thing. You know, does that make sense? Do you get that analogy?
Yeah, I do. And I think sometimes we expect a solid rock from someone else rather than letting ourselves be soft with ourselves and then noticing how that allows us to be solid for another. When I saw the oak tree, that was kind of what came to mind.
That's what I was referring to, like the solid oak tree, like it's still porous. It still has those small holes. You know what I mean? And just like the dainty flower does, just like a man, he's capable of being hurt. And he needs to talk about his pain and emotions just like us women do. Now, it's okay for a woman to cry, literally break down and chipping a fucking nail, or half-frat mocha latte shit ordered wrong. She could cry and sob and then cry about her mascara running. But he can't cry about the emotional trauma that he had to endure as a child. Like, the audacity of some of these women out here, that really pisses me off. Like, get a little passionate about it because that really makes me angry, because I have witnessed these hardened men that have become criminals, that have become today's thugs and killers, and because they have not dealt with these wounds. They have not dealt with these traumas because society tells them they can't. Then society beats them up for turning into the exact thing that is to be expected if you don't deal with trauma.